Kenya's peaceful election has given investors added assurance to buy assets in East Africa's biggest economy, but a legal challenge to the results and the possible international trial of the winner could dampen enthusiasm. Kenya, like many other frontier markets, is enjoying strong growth, with its rising consumer class and high bond yields attracting international investors. In an earlier recording for Political Exchange, I asked George Omodi, he's the CEO of the African Research and Resource Forum, to explain the court processes and its implications.
I think he does have a case because, like you mentioned, the electronic voter tally system collapsed. We will find out in court what that means in terms of the integrity of the process as interpreted under the law. What we hear is that that alone is in itself quite a big thing in terms of the credibility of the election. But that is something that is not attributable to an act of commission by anybody. But on the other side of things, we have also had, people talking about very specific instances, very deliberate actions taken by individuals. Raila and his group have said they have much more information than is in public domain. They have even said that when the entire evidence is put out, people are going to be surprised at how complex, how secretive a lot of these things were. Mm-hmm. So now, we can only hope that the gentleman,
Yesterday when I spoke with analysts, they suggested that Odinga's party agents were in fact in all of the counting stations and that they signed off on the results coming out of those counting stations. Now, if one accepts that they signed off on the results coming out of those counting stations, how does that square with the claims by Odinga that they've got evidence of large-scale rigging?
It will really depend on the nature of the evidence, because if, for example, the evidence has to do with compromising his own party agents, then already that even raises doubts about the party agents' own, integrity. Again, you have to separate the verification at two levels. There is the verification that is done by the agents at the polling station, but then there's also the verification by party agents at the tallying center. And Odinga and CORD have said that at the tallying center, their party agents were thrown out. So that in itself is something. But like I was saying at the beginning, they say what we know in public domain is not all that there is. So everybody is waiting. Mm-hmm. If indeed the evidence that CORD is going to put before the court is going to be strong enough, because they have really drummed it into our ears that Kenyans know very little about this election. The mm-hmm. truth will come out when they get to court.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's look at the institutions that are going to be hearing the case. The Supreme Court, of course. Now, in the past, there's been allegations that the judiciary is much too close to the politicians. Of course, we've moved substantially since then. Is there faith among Kenyans and also other institutions that the judiciary in this instance will in fact be above board, will be a non-partisan institution that can look at the cold facts before it and rule accordingly?
At least that is a good news in this matter, that it seems both the aggrieved party and the general population in the country have a lot of confidence in the judiciary. In the past, like you mentioned, our judiciary was largely characterized as corrupt. It had to do with the manner in which the judges were appointed and the way the judiciary related to the executive. Things have changed since we enacted a new constitution, we recruited a new chief justice, and that, I might say, is the consolation that people seem to have a lot of confidence in the judiciary, and it is very unlikely that once they pronounce themselves on the issue, people will continue even to raise more questions. That probably is a good thing about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at the behavior of the various supporters and that there's been tremendous calm in this period, even though people have complained. There's been very little outbreaks of violence. People have not taken to the streets. George, take us through what people are doing to actively keep supporters of Odinga at bay, so that you have a process that can unfold to check complaints, to check the veracity of some of the allegations that have been made, instead of people going out on the streets. What has been put in place, and how have people managed to hold on to that calm that is prevailing?
There are two things I need to say on that issue, even before I explain how the peace is getting maintained. The first thing is that, in as far as keeping supporters out of the street is concerned, it is both ways actually. Odinga supporters, of course, are more hurt than Uhuru supporters, but even winners can actually disrupt peace sometimes. So I think the effort has to be on both sides. But in as far as the supporters of CORD are concerned, again, Odinga is a politician with a very tight and firm hold on his following. They listen to him. He has come out, at least on the day he had a press conference, and said everybody should wait, his supporters should wait until the court process is finished, and that seems to be working. But I can tell you that in Nairobi and in Kenya, the calm is very uneasy. People haven't poured into the streets. There have not been any violence, but you can feel the tension. It's palpable in the streets of Nairobi.